The general started to rise from his padded armchair. I have never heard anything like it. This is mutiny. Please countersign the requisition order, sir, said NAI. We haven't much time, we move off in an hour. The enemy is right outside the city. What on earth do you mean by? Come on, hurry up, said NAI Turs in a funereal voice. Hunching his head between his shoulders, his eyes starting from his head, the general pulled a piece of paper from under the naked woman and with a shaking hand, spattering ink, scrawled in the corner. Issue the above stores. NAI Turs took the paper, tucked it into the cuff of his sleeve, turned to his cadets and gave the order. Load up the felt boots. Look sharp. Clumping and rattling, the cadets began to file out. As NAI waited for them to leave, the general, purple in the face, said to him, I shall immediately ring the Commander-in-Chief's headquarters and raise the matter of having you court-martialed. This is unheard of. Go ahead and try, replied NAI Turs, swallowing his saliva. Just try. Just out of interest, go ahead and try. He put his hand on the revolver butt peeping out of his unbuttoned holster. The general's face turned blotchy and he was silent. If you pick up that telephone, you silly old man, NAI suddenly said in a gentle voice, I'll give you a hole in your head from this Colt and that will be the end of you. The general sat back in his chair. The folds of his neck were still purple, but his face was gray. NAI Turs turned around and went out. For a few more minutes the general sat motionless in his armchair, then crossed himself towards the icon, picked up the telephone receiver, raised it to his ear, heard the operator's muffled yet intimate voice. Suddenly he had a vision of the grim eyes of that laconic colonel of hussars, replaced the receiver and looked out of the window. He watched the cadets in the yard busily carrying gray bundles of felt boots out of the black doorway of the stores, where the quartermaster sergeant could be seen holding a piece of paper and staring at it in utter amazement. NAI Turs was standing with his legs astraddle beside a two-wheeled cart and gazing at it. Weakly the general picked up the morning paper from the table, unfolded it and read on the front page. On the river Irpin clashes occurred with enemy patrols which were attempting to penetrate towards Svyatashino. He threw down the newspaper and said aloud, "Cursed be the day and the hour when I took on this." The door opened and the assistant chief of the supply section entered, a captain who looked like a tailless skunk. He stared meaningly at the folds of purpling flesh above the general's collar and said, "Permission to report, sir." "See here, Vladimir Fyodorich," the general interrupted him, sighing and gazing about him in obvious distress, "I haven't been feeling too good, a slight attack of and I'm going home now. Will you please take over?" "Yes, sir," replied the skunk, staring curiously at the general. "But what am I to do?" "The 4th Detachment and the engineers are asking for felt boots." "Did you just give an order to issue 200 pairs?" "Yes. Yes, I did," replied the general in his piercing voice. "Yes, I gave the order." "I personally allowed it." "Theirs is an exceptional case. They are just going into combat." "Yes, I gave the order." A look of curiosity flashed in the skunk's eyes. "Our total stock is only 400 pairs. "What can I do?" squeaked the general. "Do you think I can produce them like rabbits out of a hat?" "Eh? Issue them to anybody who asks for them." 5 minutes later, General McCushion was taken home in a cab. Hash. During the night of December 13th to the 14th, the moribund barracks on Brest-Litovsk Street came to life. In the vast, dirty barrack rooms, the lights came on again, after some cadets had spent most of the day stringing wires from the barracks and connecting them up to the street lamps. A 150 rifles stood neatly piled in threes, whilst the cadets slept sprawled fully dressed on dirty cots. At a rickety wooden table, strewn with crusts of bread, mess tins with the remains of congealed stew, cartridge pouches and ammunition clips, sat NAITers unfolding a large colored plan of the city. A small kitchen oil lamp threw a blob of light onto the maze-like map, on which the Dnieper was shown like a huge, branching, blue tree. By about 2 o'clock in the morning, sleep began to overtake NAITers. His nose twitched, and occasionally his head nodded towards the map as though he wanted to study some detail more closely. Finally he called out in a low voice, "Cadet." "Yes, "Sir," came the reply from the doorway, and with a rustle of felt boots a cadet approached the table. "I'm going to turn in now," said an AI. If a signal comes through by telephone, waken Lieutenant Jarov, and depending on its contents he will decide whether to waken me or not.